Well, oh, volume again. There we go. Always with the volume. Wow, it's really low this time. Okay, there we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It is Monday, the 2nd of February, and it's 6:43 p.m. And tonight we're going to talk about a number of things. I'm going to tag some of my usual themes and try to present a snapshot of the time we're living in, if it's possible. I had a long talk with a friend of mine this morning that I've known since the fourth grade. I mean, we weren't super tight growing up. Um, Interesting guy, though. He's been a truck driver his whole life, stayed in Ottawa where I was born. His name's Rodney. Rod. Great guy. He's just turned 60, and I saw the notice on Facebook, so I decided to give him a call, and we ended up chatting for quite some time. And I was astounded to learn how many people I know from elementary school, and they're all late 50s now. And how many people have cancer now. And, serious cancers and serious illnesses. And Rod can't drive anymore because he has a prostate issue. It's not cancer or anything, but apparently his prostate is 7 times the size of a normal prostate. And this is a guy who has absolutely no conspiratorial thinking in him, as do most people in Ottawa. They're the same. When you're raised in a capital city, like I can't speak for Washington, okay? Maybe in the Washington bubble. But very close to Washington, you have some of the worst neighborhoods in the United States, like Baltimore, which was featured in HBO's The Wire. And that is a collapsed culture. Um, and yet collapsed cultures continue to go on, which I find amazing in and of itself. That you know there's something hopeful in there. There's something depressing in there, but there's simultaneously something hopeful in there. And in this instance, it's that the human race will continue to breed through all circumstances. The mandate to life and to the continuity of life on this dimension is overwhelming, right? And people would continue to breed through radioactivity, you know. Not everybody, though. Some people can't make it when life gets too tough. Well, that's not the case in Baltimore. The case in Baltimore is a decrepit culture of community predation with drugs and violence. So I can't say all capital cities are the same, but Ottawa was just it was like a Disney movie growing up there. Nobody ever lost their jobs. And now my buddy Rod, this is the big update I got today, is so many things are happening in Ottawa. So many people that we know getting sick. And he was saying that loads of restaurants are closing down. And all of the immigration problems he was explaining. They have a program in Canada now called the TFR, the Temporary Foreign Worker. And so if you're running like a coffee shop, and we have this really popular one in Canada named after a relatively famous hockey player named Tim Horton. And the franchise is called Tim Hortons. And it's really kind of a Canadian cultural thing. If you live If you live in like probably the northeast of the United States, you would know about it. I'm not sure how far it's gone into the United States, but I know they have Tim Hortons in Buffalo and places like that. And so, I mean, minimum wage in Canada now, it's province by province, it's different, but minimum wage in Canada now is um what is it? I think it's like 14.50 an hour. But under the temporary foreign worker program, if you hire somebody who's an immigrant with the TFR status, the government pays half the salary. So the the franchise owner is only paying $7 an hour. Now, I'm not sure if this would even fly in the United States, if it would even be tolerated in the United States. But that's Canada. And there just seems to be this incredible effort since Trudeau came in a decade ago, 2015, 11 years ago, to destroy the old country and specifically attack the multi-generational Canadians, the Europeans. You know, I mean, the only person I know about talking about this extensively is Tucker Carlson. And I don't think it's even as bad in the United States. I mean, Canada is it's so in your face in Canada, it isn't funny. And the Canadians are not dealing with it well. Too polite, I guess. There's a bit of a backlash. I mean, the Emergencies Act to end the blockade, the trucker blockade in Ottawa in 2022, was just recently, in the last 2 weeks or month, in an appellate court, deemed illegal. And yet, one of the organizers, one of the principal figures, a woman by the name of Tamara Lynch, is being retried again. They convicted her on a couple charges. She got, like, I think 15 months house arrest or something like that, small fine. And the Crown Prosecutor's Office has taken her back to court. And so we don't have double jeopardy in Canada. In the United States, if you get tried and you're acquitted, they can't retry you. But in Canada, I mean, the Crown can do these things. And the Crown has unlimited resources because they're dealing with the public treasury. They have access to the public treasury. They're paid out of the general tax pool. So it becomes, when you look at it honestly, a form of civic torture, you know? And, with all of the evidence that's come in about COVID and the vaccine, which is another thing that Rod and I spoke about, and I was surprised that he had come to the conclusion that the vaccines had something to do with this. All the people getting sick and, you know, and, he asked me my opinion, and I graciously declined to go into it because, sometimes I just don't like to give people the full dose of reality. For certain people, it might be a bit cruel. I did, however, mention that it is my belief that we're in an organized and structured depopulation event. And he said, yes, he could see that. It wasn't a big stretch for him, and it brings me back to this common point I always come back to, okay? And it's so relevant now with all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff coming out, all the vaccine stuff coming out. Somehow, in losing our, I don't know what we lost. I don't want to say, I was going to say our religious culture, you know, but that doesn't seem appropriate at this juncture, but there's something fundamentally missing in us. And it has to do with our understanding of the dangers we live with and the limit of negativity. you know, how negative the negativity really is. Well, I think a lot of people are starting to get it now with this Epstein document dump. But even then, you can't really get it until you look at it multidimensionally. And you have to be able to conceptualize something as evil as, let's say, the reptilians or demons, um, which are capable of any form of negativity. That's their job, enforcement through negativity. And that to me is the only way that what's going on becomes understandable. But something has happened to people where they can't go that dark. They can't conceive of it. And I don't know why. Because it's really about the only thing that's going to save us now. When I published The Light of Darkness, which I think is the darkest book I've ever published. I mean, The Devil in Us is very dark as well, muy oscura. But, you know, in 2020, 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, I thought that I'd gone too far with that book. I thought I had laid things down to paper that just should not be laid down to paper, like some 12th century Islamic grimoire. You know, they have some really, really dark magical texts in the Islamic world. There's something about that region of the world, right? Because um, there was a lot of dark stuff in that region of the world, in the cradle of civilization, you know, in I guess it's called the Mediterranean Gulf, where this epoch of civilization seems to have expressed itself. I mean, not discounting um, the cycles of destruction that some people talk about, like our friend Ed Archaics, who's, I mean, let's be honest, just a voracious researcher and reader. My highest compliments to him. But that aside, you know, dealing with what we call normative history, and if and this my next statement is still true, even if the 138 year cycle is true, because they bring things into every age from, and one of the things they've been carrying forward for a long time, and it has really been the operating system of planet Earth, both as a spiritual ideology and a human practice. And this is the true religion running the world that Jordan and Bill Cooper and Alan Watt talk about. And it's amazing to me how I've created this library of conspiracy theories. You know, most of them beginning in or really hitting their pitch in the 90s or early 2000s. Although Alan Watt went right up until 2022, but he started talking about what he knew in the 90s. And they're all basically saying the same thing. You know, the starch metaphor, rice, potato, bread, it's all just starch to the digestive system, to the nutritional tract of the body. It's all just starch. It's just basic glucose based carbohydrate energy, you know, calories. And it's the same thing when you look at Alan Watt and Jordan Maxwell and Bill Cooper. It's potatoes, pasta, and rice. Just three different versions of starch. Amazing how uncannily consistent they all are. And the thing that boggles me the most, the thing that causes me the most curiosity, is humanity's fail, at least in our part of the world. I think in other parts of the world, no. But in our part of the world, the Western First World, there is just this inability to comprehend the characteristics of the enemy. And you can't win a battle if you don't study your enemy. And our enemy is this human cult commiserating with whatever they're commiserating with. You know, I famously try to avoid this debate. Recently, I just watched a very informative documentary on the Collins elite. I don't know if you folks are familiar with it, but it was a group of intelligence people that were formed secretly and clandestinely, even amidst the three-letter agencies. They met in secret. There was no official declaration that they existed. And they were, I think, in the 1970s, they were tasked with addressing the UFO issue. And they concluded it was a demonic deception, that these were just demons. I don't agree with that. I agree with one thing. And, you know, the basis of their conclusion was talking, you know, interviewing witches and having witches channel these entities and saying, oh, basically like Reagan McNeil in The Exorcist, stupid human, your mother's in here with us, you know. And amidst this, they're saying, you know, the UFOs are our great deception. No, I think there's some truth to that, but not wording is critical here, because this is really all just a semantic argument. Okay? It's like three people standing in the rain debating what wet is. You know, whether it's the ardent religionists, the ardent extraterrestrials, or solo figures like Cliff High. It's really, the semantic argument doesn't matter to me. It's part of this egotistical, I'm right. All you need to know is we exist with something that hates us in a way we can't even imagine. Beyond our imagination, to the degree to which this third force, whatever it is, hates humanity and wants to destroy it. And it fits the profile of negative extraterrestrials. It fits the profile of the demons. But it isn't. But it doesn't matter, is my point. It just doesn't matter at this point. What matters is we get our shit together and we realize that whatever this is, whatever it is, it has infected the political class, and it has been running the political class for it overtly, meaning not even hiding it, overtly since 9/11, and covertly probably, as I document in The Devil in Us, from the end of World War II, from 1947 onward, when they set up all the infrastructure. Now, another thing I've been doing lately is I've been listening to a lot of Chabad rabbis. People like Manis Friedman, another one named Jacobson. And I got to tell you, I like what I'm hearing. And I don't see any deceit in these rabbis. To me, they're telling the truth. And it was very important for me to do this. You know, very important for me to do this. Because it helps you understand something that's going on now. Yes, there are a preponderance of people of Jewish ethnicity that can clearly be seen as flag bearers of the Luciferian cult agenda. But I no longer believe it's correct to say that it's the Jews. Okay? Now, to even be considered for candidacy in this religion, you would have to demonstrate a certain amount of illumination, meaning that you were aware of at least one reality beyond physical. You would have to have a certain amount of intelligence to be operative in the cult, to do things for them. And you would have to have a dispensation towards their level of negativity. Ergo, you'd have to have no conscience. And a lot of Jewish people fit that bill. And I think one of the things that happens, and it occurred to me watching these rabbis like Manis Friedman, and one of the things that happens to these Jews is they lose faith. Look at what the world did to us. Look at this, look at that. Look at what my mother told me. Look at what my grandmother told me. And they say, fuck it. And they go all in on the darkness. But it is not correct to say that this is a Jewish phenomenon. Okay? Yes, they've been absolutely present in banking and finance, which has been the principal weapon to advance the world over the last 400 years. Physical wars are just to um, dispend with munitions that have stockpiled and to depopulate, and blood ritual. The real war is always financial, it's always economic, which is why I chose to live a life as self-sufficient as possible. Okay? Because when you're self-sufficient, you really start to see things differently. You start to see the world differently. You start to think differently. You begin to gain a little bit of what I would call native sovereignty. And you no longer have to agree with what the system architects are telling you to agree with, because your livelihood is not dependent upon that agreement. And it's very liberating. And it allows you to exist in a state of freedom, more or less. I still work, I still need money. You know, what are you going to do? But this negativity we're dealing with is as dark gets. But once you just finally confront it in yourself and you see the darkness, it's over. It's like a rite of passage. It's like an inoculation. And it's an important inoculation. Okay? So I'm very glad I went through that with Bob. Very glad I went through that dark passage and came to understand these things. It's helped me understand light and God much better. And it's helped me understand the world a lot better. And my mission, which seems to be defined by my genetics, my upbringing, and my education, as I repeat numerous times on this podcast, is still connected to the world in a way that a contemplative usually is not. The contemplative is, you want to liberate your consciousness from the physical, the astral, get it up to the causal, and don't reincarnate here anymore. It's nothing but suffering on this planet. Don't get involved in politics. Don't get involved in economics. Don't get involved in justice. Don't get involved in equity. Don't get involved in equilibrium. But that never made sense to me completely. It makes sense about 80%. Your primary responsibility is the pursuit of self and the liberation from the wheel of incarnation. And I work at that every day. But at the same time, there's this other Bruce that just will not go away. Only difference is I do it with much more detachment now. Maybe too much. Maybe the things I say are too cavalier. Yeah, maybe I need to bulge the veins in my neck and grit my teeth. And evil is upon us, but I can't do it because that would be compromising my own state of being. I'm not going to let that anger inside me. So, but the message is sincere, and it's the dark initiation is needed more than ever, and it's happening. Tucker Carlson's in the middle of his dark initiation. Candace Owens is in the middle of her dark initiation. But I don't know if they'll get all the way there, because you can't get all the way there without a very strong inner life. You got to be meditating an hour or two a day. And you got to be really, really in there and cleaning out your consciousness to see clearly. You got to have paranormal and multidimensional experiences. And then it all starts to fall into place. You know, we live in a system that is largely controlled by humans who have engaged entities in the fourth dimension, which may have always been here or may have recently been here. And these entities on the fourth dimension, the astral plane, are very, very dark. And this imbues the living humans with a sense of power through the commiseration with this darkness, a sense of invulnerability. Nothing can touch me. And they stop thinking about their obligation to God or the karmic consequences of what they're doing. But there's so many people going through the dark initiation now. I wish I could help them, but they got to find their own way. That's the thing about the initiatic process. You can't go through puberty for somebody else. They have to go through it. Um, so what's going on now, leveraging journalistic, Bruce, is we're starting to get layers of negativity now, like intense layers of negativity. And I guess you could say, if you were paying attention, you could have said this is coming, because it makes complete sense when you understand the game. Because the things they've done at this point in history, and I would say, I mean, you could start it at 2001, deliberately bombing New York City and killing 3,000 people and probably another 50,000 people with all the chemicals. Because, as I understand it, those World Trade Centers were full of bad stuff like asbestos. A lot of the firefighters have died. And a lot of the people in the vicinity who breathed all that stuff in have either died or have severe health problems. So who knows what the real death toll is. But that's an example of the directed darkness I'm talking about. And it begins in 2001. Now, when you understand that, you can see the Clintons setting it up. They've all been working together up until Trump, and Trump may be working with them. He may be the final deceit to get everybody in America to commit harikari, seppuku, to kill themselves. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. My intuition says he's afflicted by God. I haven't changed my story one bit since 2016. It's not his heart. It's not him wanting the best to happen. It's just every time he touches something, the truth pops out. And it wasn't meant to pop out. It wasn't for public disclosure. And it's just this affectation that he has. So I call it the divine affliction, right? He's afflicted with God. He doesn't want to be, I don't think, a messenger of the divine or of truth. But every circumstance he gets into peels the onion a little bit more. And you're going, wow, it's really kind of neat the way he keeps doing that. But it's been the same story now. You know, the Clintons, and you know, if you've been around with the Talamanca Review for the 2 years I've been on air, I mean, amidst all the podcasts, the whole story is there. I started really after World War II, which is what the devil in us is all about. And you can see clearly the whole once you see it, it's like a runway lit up at night. You know how on an airport runway they have all the lights on the side so the pilots can see the runway, And that's how you know it's real. The whole thing just lights up. Suddenly you're not trying to connect dots, just boom, the whole there it is. The whole picture. They're collapsing Western civilization. So we can garner from this that there is a force on this planet which has given itself the authority to shape human destiny at the collective level. They can't really interfere with the individual level. That's relationship with the divine. And it has nothing to do with these bodies. Okay? Nothing to do with these bodies at all. It has to do with what's inside the body, with what comes into incarnation here. And they can't really mess with that. Even the victims of this horrible stuff that's all coming out now, like with the Epstein files and everything, even spiritually, they're untouched. Their soul is fine. Okay? Mentally, they're banged up. Astrally, they're banged up. And they have a lot of healing to go through. But spiritually, there's nothing wrong with them. Okay? It's an incredible thing about how the soul is sort of agnostic to all experience. The soul doesn't categorize things as negative or positive. There's just passages that perception goes through to learn things. It's the human mind and the human culture that makes it something that is much more traumatic. But this world-changing force is completely visible now, and completely visible in the West. And with the layering of things now, I mean, let me give you an example of what I mean. You could make the argument that the inception of alternative media in its present form was 9/11. It was like the Watergate for Gen X. It was like the JFK assassination for Gen X, my generation, okay? So I was born in 66, so I was 33 turning 34. I was 34 years old when the Twin Towers came down. Isn't that amazing? Add another 25 years and you get 59, which is the age I'm at now, which is the age at which many of my friends that I grew up with in Ottawa are dead or seriously sick. And so we see clearly that this is no longer random. Anyone perceiving this at random at this point is just crazy. Okay? Everything about the world we live in is no longer the world our fathers and mothers lived in when they were making their families and going through their leadership role as the leadership generation. It's not the same world anymore. Property doesn't exist anymore. And I mean, everything they want to do, according to the WEF, is technically already done. It's just that the public mind has not caught up with it yet. And you see it in these little flare-ups, like this massive parcel of land in Richmond, British Columbia, being given to a native tribe based on a court case, and the judge citing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. That's a huge thing. My friend Rod and I, we talked about that today as well. Huge thing. Okay, people can't get their homes remortgaged because the banks don't know if they're the true owners of the land, which means the municipality lied to them, which means the province lied to them, which means effectively there's no guarantor. And if there's no guarantor, your guarantor is like your security. This is mine because the state says it's mine because my name's on the land registry, and the land registry registers my name and the plot of land and my house in the city archives. I am the owner of this house. And that's guaranteed by your municipal government, your mayor, your city council, by the police that you pay for, and by the provincial or state government. Now, to the best of my understanding, this UNDRIP stuff has not hit the US yet. But I promise you, I shouldn't say promise, I assure you that had Kamala Harris won with Tim Walz, you'd be looking at stuff like this now. You'd be looking at like, okay, we've just given half of Montana to this Delaware Native tribe in a court case, right? Again, this makes Trump harder to understand because he's pulling out of all that nonsense. Okay? He's doing very well, by the way, in this street fight. He's doing very, very well. He's changing Europe. He's changing a lot of things. I mean, the guy, say what you will about the narcissistic, deformed personality and the almost defective 14-year-old boy at the core of his persona. Say what you will about his personality. As a tactician, I've never seen better in my lifetime. I've never I've never seen a better national leader at achieving their goals than Trump. It's mind-boggling, actually. United States, with the acquisition of Venezuela, is the #1 energy exporter in the world now. Many people are saying that Trump has effectively reinstated the petrodollar. It doesn't matter who Saudi Arabia sells to. It doesn't matter if Saudi Arabia sells in RMB. Saudi Arabia, their oil days are coming to an end. I don't know how much longer they have, 20, but the largest energy seller in the world now is the United States. Think about that for a moment. Begging the question, where is all the money going? But that's for another podcast. So everything is layered now. So people are dealing with immediate issues like staying housed because of the vast majority of Americans and Canadians are living month to month now. Month to month. So staying housed is one thing. Think about the health bills. Think about living in a place like the United States and having gotten double vaxxed and boosted. And then because they poisoned your body, having to go into their medical system. It's like those stories you hear from people who went to Mexican resorts and, despite the best counsel of the concierge, wandered off the resort grounds into the little town and got horribly assaulted purposely, so that they get sent to a private medical clinic unconscious in Mexico. They wake up in 6 hours or the next day, all fully medicated and repaired, and their bones in casts, and a list of the medications. And somebody comes in and speaks perfect English and tells them all the procedures they've been through, and they're going to be okay. Don't worry about anything. By the way, you owe us 26,000 US dollars. And the street gangs beating the people up work for the medical clinic. You can hardly imagine a social circumstance more negative. It's parasitic, it's cannibalistic, it lacks all generosity and love, it's demonic. But this is normal now. This is the normal we live in now. I may be unduly colored by my 90-minute conversation with Rodney this morning, but maybe I just needed to hear it from a regular guy, because I haven't been there in 12 years. I haven't been in North America, well, 2018, but I mean, I really left in 2014. So I haven't really been a part of North American culture for 13 and a half years. I only see it through a media lens. But everything that's going on now is about taking you down like you're a wounded gazelle on the Serengeti and there's a pride of lions on your tail. You just can't catch a break. And all of these circumstances have been contrived. There's nothing random about them. Something fucking hates you. Get this through your head. Don't worry about what it is. Something hates you. Like hates you beyond your worst enemy times 100. Hates you in the biblical sense. Wants you decimated. Well, as I said in that trio of podcasts, um, degraded, defiled, and then desecrated. Desecration being the end, where you're just torn apart by the wolves. Yeah, not a super pleasant message tonight, but I mean, 2026 seems to have a lot of this reality. That now the hope that Trump offers, I don't know who that hope is for. I'm not sure the day by day in the American economy has changed that much. I don't know if the civil servants have let up on their diversity, equity, and inclusion hires. Again, another targeted attack on the multi-generational European families that settled, built, and civilized these Western countries, which are a magnet to everybody else in the world. They want to come and live there. And then when they get there, they just complain and say they're a victim of something and ask for free money. This is not the way these countries were built up. This is not the way they were developed in the 70s. And there's a conscious force behind this. It takes nothing happens on this dimension without consciousness being applied to it, without effort, attention, and consciousness being applied to it. What the West is going through now is faux karma theater. It's not real karma. It's one group of human beings through institutional power and control doing it. You know, Justin Trudeau even said it out loud in 2015. He said, I have no regard or any great liking for old stock Canadians, and I have no problem replacing them. He said it out loud. He's a white Christian Catholic. That's the family's Catholic. Clearly, they're connected to the real religion, but culturally, I mean, he's the same thing. He's killing his own. Killing his own. And he parades around the world doing what he does and enjoying himself and dating Katy Perry like a fucking brainwashed idiot. And the guy just destroyed the country I was born in a decade. Took generations to build the country up. And this little wonder twat comes in and just absolutely destroys the country in 10 years. And it's not just him. It's all the fucking idiots that bought his bullshit and voted for him. Okay? I think there should be a test to vote. I think you should have to have a basic understanding of economics, basic understanding of a number of other things. You should be examined and you should be licensed to vote. Otherwise, you're just some moron who's going to fall for anything. I mean, for crying out loud, Kamala Harris almost became president of the United States. You know who they're talking about as a possible replacement now? Because the DNC is rudderless now. They don't have a leader. And I heard today that the two front runners are Gavin Newsom and AOC. Yeah, the bartender from Brooklyn or Queens or wherever she's from, Spanish Harlem or whatever fucking part of New York she's from. The bartender. Is that someone you want representing you at meetings with China? Making important policy decisions? This is another thing that's going on now is the almost cosmetic nature of our politics. I mean, no serious person could believe these people are coming up with the ideas or the legislation. They're just the visible front of an invisible group that wants these things done. Now, who that group is, I don't know. I mean, clearly we see aspects of it. We see aspects of it in the World Economic Forum. And let's be honest, we see aspects of it in Jewish expression. But again, I don't believe it's Jewish. Okay, just because someone's ethnically a Jew doesn't mean they're Jewish in the religious sense that they're practicing the religion. This is what watching these rabbis taught me. Some of the worst anti-Semites in history have been Jews. So who knows where it's all going? Now you got all these layers on top of you, you know? All these layers, you know? You got all these health effects from the COVID vaccine, but nobody's talking about them or reporting on them in the mainstream because the mainstream is consumed by what's happening in the moment, and the moment just keeps getting more and more and more dramatic, right? Those tension levels can't be good for people's health either, especially after they've had the vax. Yeah, it's like that first reality TV show, Survivor. That's what that was like revelation of the method. That was some kind of foreshadowing right there, you know? Absolutely it was. I don't know if the United States can do it alone. Trump's an old man now. He's about 80 years old now, you know? Doesn't have the energy he used to. And then there's a dark agenda even in that group. You've got the whole Palantir agenda, which is like the sort of digital manifestation of the Jewish Messiah. Very creepy story going on there. The whole world being turned into some kind of digital prison camp. One of the things I say to people is, do you like where you live now? Like, I mean, what's the view like? Do you have access to nature? Do you like where you live now? Because you can see a possible future now where a 2 or 3 kilometer radius, so a 4 or 6 kilometer circumference of where you live, will be your mobility footprint. Okay? So if you're living in Manhattan or you're living in Los Angeles, once this digital system comes in, are you going to be able to go hiking in the mountains? Are you going to need special permission? It's the human condition. You can fulfill every human desire, but the incessant egotism of human beings will tip the canoe every time. It isn't enough. It isn't enough. It isn't enough. It's like a constant repeating of the King Solomon story. Maybe that's what the true story of King Solomon is about. About societies, civilizations, balance, harmony, and living. Because nobody seems to be able to get it right. Now, one can only imagine what's coming in 2026 now. I mean, how do you top everything that's gone on since 2020? COVID. I mean, we haven't really had time as a people to fully digest what was done to us psychologically during the lockdowns. Not me. It's pretty hard to be locked down in the rainforest, but you know what I mean, right? We haven't had time to digest that. We haven't had time to process that trauma or understand the degree to which it changed us. Sitting in your home for 2 or 3 years and having profound restrictions on your movements and having to wear a mask everywhere you go and being told you're going to lose your job if you don't get this experimental vaccine, which goes right down to the DNA level, beyond cellular, right down to the DNA. But trust us, and all the information about the vaccine is coming out now, that it really wasn't properly tested. I was reading today that Canada has put a 15-year moratorium on a report that was compiled on vaccine death and injury. For security reasons, they've deemed that the public cannot see it for 15 years. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you right out of the gate that it's nothing good, right? Now, all persons in a free society are supposed to be equal. That includes the government. They're liable for their actions, and if they're not, it's a dictatorship. They mandated the vaccine. Public employees had to get it or lose your job. Can't lose your job if you're raising kids, paying a mortgage. So they got it. And it's so bad based on the government's own research gathering that they're not going to show it to the public until 2041. So what that is essentially hiding evidence of a crime, obfuscating their own liability. Now, a government has certain allowance to do that, which would fall under the, I guess you'd say, something along the lines of protecting the public good and maintaining harmony in society and not creating riots. But it would have to be something on that level for them to prohibit the publication of this information. Like I said, I mean, they're continuing to prosecute Tamara Lynch from her actions in 2022 in the trucker convoy in Ottawa. Even after she went through a trial already, they're reapplying the charges. Even with all of the, even with their own government, the Canadian government, prohibiting examination of injury and death statistics and reports from the vaccine. How do you justify that morally? What could the government possibly know that would justify this? You know, something that sometimes there's something behind the curtain, and for legitimate reasons, the public can't know. And government has to act with that knowledge gap and hope that the public trusts them. But I don't think that's a valid excuse in this instance. It is plain and simple massive depopulation, like I've been saying for 5 or 6 years now. I think people are starting to understand, you know, but to truly understand it, you have to be able to grasp the level of negativity we're dealing with. And that's something that few people are willing to do, to come to understand how dark it really is. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.